would you like to just kick off? Tell us about yourself and the Trainline and the sort of journey that you've been on.
So, so I'm probably a dinosaur actually, in the sense of the internet world, because I've been with Trainline for 15 years, so from about 2002 to now.
It's been going that long.
It's been going that long. Actually, been going since 1999. So we're quite an old company in this sort of space. And so, so for me, I've been around for the sort of the beginning of the internet retailing world, when it was actually more smoke and mirrors, if we will remember that, rather than where we are now. It's a bit more sophisticated. Trainline has sort of grown up very much over those 15 years, and we're now an international player. We're selling off 87 train carriers in 24 countries. We're doing, let's see, we have about 43 million visits per month to our site. We do 125,000 train journeys a day. We sell 100 tickets a minute. So our scale has grown quite hugely over that period of time. And as a result of that, so is a need for us to sort of change the way that we operate and actually work in an operations way from where we started. And so, you know, listening to the end of your last speaker, we're fortunate that most of the fulfillment and activities we do now are much more digitally based than actually physical stock, as it were.
Yeah, and I have to sort of tell you, I am a Trainline customer.
Excellent.
We've got a few people in the room here. Everyone a Trainline customer here? Yeah. So how did it start? What's behind Trainline? I mean, yes, I'm a Trainline customer, but from time to time I've just looked at what the other sites are. There seems to be a big similarity between the Trainline and National Rail Enquiries. Is it part of? Is it separate? Was it?
So
what's sort of behind the whole venture?
The history of Trainline, basically, it all came out of the concept in the late 90s, where yield management from the airlines came into the rail industry. And Virgin Trains were the first ones to actually use that, and the idea was, when the privatisation of the rail network took it up, was the idea that the advanced purchase ticket is how you start doing yield management. So you then start filling your trains, but to do that you have to find a way of actually getting people to book in advance. So to book in advance, you needed initially a call centre, and then the internet, and now the app has taken over. So that was a logic of where the sort of whole concept of booking in advance came from. And Trainline was originally very much around, if those of you who've seen our adverts, was about if you book in advance, you save 43%, up to 43% on your journey. And the idea behind that was to sort of actually push, to help people to find the right journeys at the right time. Where we're moving now is we're moving much now towards convenience booking and far more into the mobile sector. So for like, we have sort of, as I said, 45 million visits, and 77% of our sales are now for an app, and we're moving much more to the convenience side. So very much to the walk-up piece. You don't really see it so much in London and South East yet, but in the north of England, you can do barcode ticketing and from your mobile now, and actually you can just walk up and use that environment.
I have to say, it impresses me. I get a good customer experience. It's it works for me.
Great. That's it. I'm a happy man.
So, but who owns the Trainline then? What's behind the Trainline?
So going back to asking your initial question, National Rail Enquiries was an independent, is a sort of an amalgamation of all the top companies, and it was originally set up in '97 to actually provide train information. So it doesn't actually retail. It's not a retail site. It's actually an information site to actually help people on that, and it pushes people through to the train operating companies' websites. So that's what the difference. So we're all about, they're about information. We're all about trying to retail and actually trying to drive innovation forward in the industry. So who owns us? We're PE owned. We're owned by KKR, who bought us 3 years ago. Prior to that, we were owned by another PE company called Exponent, and prior to that, we were owned by Virgin Trains. Virgin Trains and Stagecoach were our initial shareholders and the ones who actually set us up. So we started off as a spin-off out of Virgin Trains, as it were.
Yeah. So huge investment into the technology. I mean, it's all about the technology. Has that been funded by the train operating companies? I mean, have they?
No. So all our funding. So the funding for us is all by ourselves. So we have like 250 developers currently working, so in-house. So we're a pretty major developer compared to anybody in the internet space. So no, we're an independent company. We have to fund everything out of what money we can make from commission and from small fees that we put here and there on the site, and from other means that we find. But yeah, absolutely independent. We work with the train operating companies and with the industry as itself to try and find new ways forwards and how we can actually develop the product as it goes forward. I mean, a good example of that is mobile ticketing at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you're operating at still off multiple formats then. So you've got you can go onto the Trainline on your PC.
Yep.
You can do it through your web-enabled device, and you've got the app.
Correct.
Sort of out there as well. So
Yep.
any more sort of versions, or is that the sort of main three platforms that you're operating?
They are the main three platforms. We did on the app Watch. You could actually get your timetable information, but
Okay.
not many people use that these days. I don't think.
And I think what's sort of interesting to people in this conference, seeing this in terms of how you've developed this as a service to the consumer, what the key learnings are, for the retail and logistics industries that are, as we're hearing, blurring further together. So what percentage of your business now is actually on a mobile device?
So we sell over 50%.
50%.
Over 50. So if you take us, because we have two elements to what we do. Is the bit we make money at is obviously selling tickets. The other piece obviously is customers use us for information as they travel around, and so for us that's a way of getting people to come and get to know us, and then hopefully they'll buy off us if we've got the right products for them. But the mobile side is it's 50% and growing. It's growing rapidly. I mean, we see desktop over a period of time, disappearing. I mean, you could sort of see in the course of a week where people are purchasing, and hours, isn't it? I mean, basically people buy on their desktop when they're at work. Yeah. They buy on web mobile when they're watching TV, and they buy off their app when they're wandering around. I mean, those are if you put it very simplistically, that's exactly how it works. And you have to provide a product that works in those spaces. So we see, for example, in the rail industry, you will see people who are booking long, advanced journeys where they're sort of taking their time and thinking about what they're doing. They will use a desktop, probably they're using desktop at work, or they'll be doing it on their web to mobile at home. Where we're sort of moving more into is the opportunity to actually book your ticket on your phone and just get the convenience of it. So, for example, I landed back from New York on Wednesday last week, and I'm at the carousel waiting for my friend who hadn't actually planned his luggage well to get the thing, but I was able to buy my ticket for Heathrow Express and just walk out and get onto it. Now, I know there's a guy outside and it doesn't take many seconds to actually buy off them, but it's just that convenience.
It's that surety of knowing.
It's surety that knowing. It's that piece of where you're going through. And for a lot of people, we find, we did some research, and a lot of people arrive about 20 minutes early when they go to a train station to pick up their ticket, either from if you're picking it up from a machine because you've got a reference number. Because sorry, for those of you who don't know the rail, you've got three choices. You can either get a paper ticket, which can be delivered to you. You can get a reference number, which means you go to one of those boxes and you basically put in the code and it comes out, or you can buy it at station from one of those machines, or you can go to barcode now. And we were finding it's about 20 minutes people were going in advance to pick up a ticket if they had a reference. Now, I'll do the train back. I'm living in Edinburgh at the moment. I'll do the train back tonight to Edinburgh. I've got my ticket on my phone, so I'll just turn up. I don't have any of that. I've got to get there earlier, get my ticket, and all that sort of thing. You just get up.
When does that sort of become 100% pervasive across the whole network? Because I do it. I mean, I use the same stretch of West Coast Main Line, and on one operator, it's barcode and it's great, and the other one, the cheap and nasty one, I've still got to go and put my credit card in the machine and get the ticket.
Where are you going to? You're going to
only up to Rugby, 80 miles up the West Coast Main Line. But
so it's the intention is that it will be. So when Chris Grayling, who's the Transport Minister, announced this week yet again, the expectation is that by the end of 2018, so a year and a half's time, you'll be able to use some form of smart ticketing anywhere in the rail network. So I would expect. My belief is that for the north, from anything which is outside London and the southeast, which is a unique position in itself, linked to something, I'd expect by April, May next year that should be the case, and by the end of next year, hopefully, we'll be starting to make inroads in London and the southeast, and we're looking at different ways of working there. So working with Apple and Google to find ways how you can make a ticket work within the phone itself, and then it's just basically away you go, in the sense of you'll be able to sort of not only book your ticket, you'll be able to see what your account's looking like, how much you're spending on your rail, get all your travel details, disruption information. What do you do now if you get a refund? So if you're going up to Rugby and the train's an hour late, rather than enter in a form or whatever.
Not your fault, but it does happen.
So, but literally, you should be able to do it. You should be able to press a button, or actually even better,
to do the refund.
To do the refund itself, and proactive, or where we want to get to is we proactively give it to you. I mean, in fact, Virgin West Coast do that on the advanced purchase side.
Okay, so a lot going on in the business then.
There's a lot going on. There's a hell of a lot going on because, as I say, we're doing, in our best weeks, we're doing 200 releases a week currently, and so the big part for us in the business is firstly in the UK, moving ourselves onto mobile, it's improving the product, but then we've got this whole piece now about how do we break into Europe and the world, etc. We're quite ambitious now about where we take ourselves, because if you look around the world as a whole, the retailing rail has not been done to a great extent. So even if you go to, it's quite surprising, if you go to Japan, where you'd expect everything to be way ahead, if you look at the Japan if you're that interested, go and look at the Japan Rail website and look at how you get tickets. It's not that easy. It's not that it's simple. Go to Amtrak in America. They do barcode, but it's a piece of paper. They don't do it to your phone. And again, it's not the easiest website to negotiate around. So we see there's an opportunity for us in this space. It's a 230 billion market worldwide. So it's quite exciting to be somewhere 15 years on where I can see, gosh, there's still a lot of runway to go, lots of opportunity. And so we're still after 15 years, still growing and expanding, which is a great place to be.
Can you see any other applications of the technology that you've developed sort of outside of the rail industry?
So, what do you mean in other multimodal phases?
Yeah, well, just any other sort of areas of the the consumer market that you could apply this ticketing sort of solution to.
I think as a business, we've very much anchored ourselves in rail. So we look outside. We look outside of what we're doing, but we very much believe that as you start spreading yourself, I mean, there's two ways to do it, isn't it? You do a vertical, you do a horizontal, and we're very much sort of sticking in our own space. We'll look at going to other areas where it can be complementary and help the rail. So, for example, we've done some work with the coach companies in the UK and put some of those on our sites. And we're looking at that in Europe as well. But the rationale behind that is not necessarily we want to sort of be multimodal. We just want to make it easy for the customer, because what we found was that you have a number of people who go to a website and look at a rail journey, and the other option, and they'll look at it and go, maybe it's too expensive. And then they want to go and look at a coach site to see if that's cheaper. Now, what happens is some go to coach, some don't go anywhere, don't make any decision. But if you have the information on the site, what you allow someone to be able to do is to make that sort of comparative decision. And we found when we did that, actually, we ended up selling coach tickets, but actually increasing our conversion on rail as well, because people stayed on the site and actually went, okay, I can see that's not the right option, I'll buy now because this is the right ticket to go. So it's a long-winded way of saying, I mean, we obviously look like every internet retailer about what are the ancillary products we can sell on, which our customers may be interested in. So, we are looking at hotels, for example. And
I was going to say, any collaboration with the kind of ticket masters of this world?
So we've looked at that in the past, and we've done some things with those in the past. And it's like everything, it's like all these things, it's coming back to the execution and doing it well. And so we're working now through a whole series of new things we're doing, and I think enhancing what we've done. So I think, hotels, for example, will be something we'll work harder at. The whole piece of, one of the things we're sort of pushing at the moment, or trying to encourage customers, is also sort of journeys where you can do event-based weekends. I mean, just like everybody else, but in the sense of you can do the journey, and then within that there's it would be seaside in summer, or whether it's special events, etc. But we're not trying to sell the tickets at this stage. We're trying to push it.
You can't do rail in an Expedia, for example, can you?
Expedia do rail.
They do.
They have recently come into the rail market, but it's not something that they are pushing very much at the moment. I think it's more part of their overall package. But we're seeing the rail market become far more competitive and far more interesting, I think, for a lot of the travel management companies going forward. So we'd expect Expedia to be more visible in the rail industry in the next year or so.
Yeah, really interesting. Any questions for Bill from the floor here? We all rail users here, all getting a good experience. Question down here. I'm going to bring the microphone.
Hi. So I know there's a lot of consumer interest in having things sort of on demand at the moment.
Yeah.
You might not necessarily plan ahead. You might just suddenly want it in the moment. And I know when I've gone to buy train tickets, I might arrive at Paddington. It's sort of rush hour. There's so many people. I've got to really queue for tickets. I was wondering if you've explored things like, with the rise of mobile, do you know where I am? And can you say, oh, you're at Paddington? Can you like make that easier because you already know where I am?
We can do that. The interesting piece is, though, the piece about that is all about you've got to let us do that,
Sure.
as it were, and that sort of piece. I think it's something we'll look at further as we go forward. I think the piece for you at Paddington, what we'd like to be able to do, and Great Western are about to roll out barcode ticketing and mobile ticketing over that environment. So hopefully by February latest, hopefully, you will be able to be at that station and say, right, okay, I now want to go. I haven't got to queue up. I can just press a button and go. Or as I'm walking towards the station, I can do that I can do that myself reactively. You've got to be very careful about what we do proactively, as I'm sure you're aware. From a data perspective, but also you can annoy the hell out of customers if you so it may be that stage you are in Paddington, but if you just happen to be walking past Paddington on the way to, I don't know, to meet a friend or whatever, think, oh, here's a train now for you. After a bit, that becomes a bit intrusive. So it's that balance between where the customer wants us to be helpful and where not. So, but definitely, I would agree with you that this piece about being proactive is what all businesses want to be, and certainly where we would like to be. I think where our proactiveness is more likely to be, and where we are trying to push it, is what the sort of information we'll give you if you try to get on a train is we do a thing called BusyBot, whereby so you've booked your ticket, we'll then say on the train, if you've reserved a seat, fine, but if you've not, where's the busiest carriage? Which carriage is the emptiest one, basically, where you're more likely to get a seat, so you can actually walk down the carriage and get into the right one.
So do you tell people that based on data you have about which seats have been booked?
So it's a mixture of two. So we do, i.e. based on the data we've got, but we also get our users to tell us. So if you're travelling on a journey, you'll get a little punch up, and you may have seen that. How's your journey today? Is your carriage busy? And people will sort of, and it's something, I do it myself actually when I'm going between Glasgow and Edinburgh, which is, none of it's reserved. It pops up and I'll press a little button and you then sort of see, it's quite interesting as it goes along. It's quite interesting to see how accurate it is, because you can sort of game it if you want to. But yeah, so that sort of thing we will do, sort of proactivity on, all the research on rail customers are one of the most frustrating things for people is when they're in the middle of the journey and there's a delay, what happens next? I'm an hour late if I'm going to a thing. How do we suggest that you get out of that? That sort of thing, okay, there's another, if you've got a connection, when is that going to be? What time are you like to get there? Is there a bus or is there a taxi? What's the things that you can do at it? Is there a thing of communicating people that you want to be communicated by text? It's all those sorts of things that we can look at as we go forward. But as I say, I think the first piece we're looking at is making certain that it's easy as possible for you to actually make the decision. The next bit is then trying to sort of guess or try to understand you well enough what you're doing. But the point you make is a really good one, because we've invested heavily in data science. I mean, I've just come out of a meeting where I actually said, well, surely that's right. You can't use the word surely in business now. Where's your data? Where's your evidence? And well, it's been running a week. That's statistically not viable until we've had 3.5 weeks of the statistics. We're not doing it. And it's right. I mean, we are so data driven, and we're looking at all those types of things of how we can find the right things for you to do, and actually how can we make certain that it works from our piece up front. That may be more than you wanted. I'm sorry, but.
No, I find it all really interesting. Thanks.
Thank you. Any more while I'm down here with the microphone? Well, we're getting close to the end of the session, Bill.
Yeah.
So, oh, sorry, I do beg your pardon. There you go.
Thanks. I've seen that you guys are using the barcode ticketing inside your app. Are you also using the inbuilt capabilities of Apple Wallet and Google Wallet?
So that's a great question, because that's what we're actually in the process of looking to how we do that currently. So there's some work going on with, as you would expect, Apple and Google have sort of different views of how it works. So we're doing some work with the industry, and we will be looking to do some pilots early to mid next year, which we'll look at with Apple working on a sort of digital wallet space, how we can actually do that. Because Apple's very proprietary about what they let you do, so there's a way in it, but we think we've found a way that will work with them. And on the Google side, we're looking at working on an ITSO standard type model and trying that. And I've actually tried it a little bit with ScotRail already obviously in Scotland, and they're sort of the ITSO piece. But yeah, we're viewing barcode, to be frank, as the sort of the stepping stone to the next technology. But the first bit is actually getting something that works and everyone accepts, because the hard thing in the rail industry, you've got 25 odd companies, so you've got to get everyone to agree on what is the standard and how these things work. Because barcode's quite universally accepted now, and we've been able to move that quite rapidly. I mean, rapidly, in a sense, to go back to Peter's question now, I'd say about 60% of the whole of the rail network of tickets we sell are barcode enabled, and so that will be 100% in a year's time, and so the digital piece is where we take it from there.
Good, thanks. Bill, to get to be the market leader, what's been the biggest challenge for you on that particular journey?
To get to be the market leader, I think we were. There's so many things, isn't there? But
well, where have you put the emphasis? I mean, I'm no front-end retail e-commerce expert, but people do tell me, one of the common mistakes is to put a lot of focus on in the retail environment the kind of front end, what the product looks like, and you get people drawn into the product, and then they don't put enough emphasis onto the payment process.
Yes,
and we talked about the abandoned basket, didn't we, this morning? Yeah. It seems to me that you've put quite a lot of focus. That payment thing is pretty slick and simple, but easy to, very user friendly.
Thank you, because that's obviously in the standard deliver section of the piece. That's one of my areas of focus. But I think it's the key bit for us has actually been doing the customer experience piece. And I know everyone uses the term tritely, but it becomes a word. But actually trying to map out what are you trying to do the whole way through. And the thing we've done, I think, well over the last few years is actually be really meticulous on that, understanding how the customer goes through a flow and how they get to the end, and just meticulously doing that continuous improvement to make certain that you identify where there is something and make the changes there. So you're always looking for where's the next block or where you're not working effectively. 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been in our payments piece, and we've done some work on that to actually make it better. It's now somewhere else, but it'll be payments again probably in a few years' time. And it's interesting, we're going out into Europe, where we've got to look at alternate payments out there. So in Germany, you've got to get into SEPA and etc. Yeah. So that creates a whole new model for us. Yeah. But I would say the focus on the customer and that sort of meticulous look at the flow beginning to end, and then focusing on areas one at a time and picking them off rather than trying to do everything.
Audience, indulge me just for 2 final little questions. Really selfish here. Bill, why can't I buy my weekly season ticket on the app?
And that's a great question, and
that's one. And so you might want to take that one away, because that would improve my life enormously. And the other one, actually more frequently probably than that, is multiple journeys on the app. I can only go on and buy one journey at a time on the app. So
let me do the one I can do easily. And the barcodes, so seasons as a perspective. So by the end of this year, you'll see the first mobile environment on Northern. So Northern Rail, which, as you know, does around the Manchester area and cuts across there, that you will be able to buy weekly tickets on barcodes. So that should be done by Christmas, January latest, and you'll see it on our thing. So my answer is it's coming. It's coming, and we're moving it forward. You'll see it, I think, in the North and the Midlands first, because we've got the barcode capability in there, and in London and the South East, as we get into the digital wallet and the Google side, as you're saying, then it becomes a real opportunity for people to do that. The multiple tickets, I haven't got a good answer for you on that one. I think it's the pieces, we haven't quite worked out how you do that with making it overly complicated, but I'll take it away and speak to our CPO. I'm probably the wrong person to answer that.
So still some room to go.
He's probably got the answer. That's the annoying thing, but I haven't been listening. I fell asleep in that meeting.
Continuous improvement is always
and I say that is the key bit.
Yeah. Great. Look, we could go on for a lot longer, but we're keeping these good people from their lunch. So, Bill, thanks very much for that, and I'm sure they'll like to thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you for staying for lunch.